Krishna all, welcome to Shubhamangalarati and Japa session. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Saki Vrinda ki jai, Panchatattva Bhagavan ki jai, Raja Pro Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Mai Sudarshan ki jai, Sarva Vigna Vinashaka Bhakta Vatsala Lakshmi Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. So we'll begin with the short Srimad Bhagavatam class. So, as we've seen, we've completed the 12th chapter of the first canto yesterday, and we'll be beginning with the new chapter today. And I will try and share my screen. So it is first reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter number 30, verse number 1. So this is 13th chapter, and the title of the chapter is Dhritarashtra Quits Home. So we'll start by reciting the verse. Sutta uvacha vidurastirthayatrayam maitreyada atmano gatim ज्ञात्वा गात हस्तिनापुरम व्यापत विविस्तः. Word to word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Word to word meaning. Suta Uvacha, Sri Suta Goswami said, Vidura Tirtha Yatrayam, while traveling to different places of pilgrimage, Maitreyat, from the great sage Maitreya, Atmana, just a minute. Atmana to the self, Gatim destination, Gnatva by knowing it, Agat went back, Hastinapuram, the city of Hastinapuram, Taya by that knowledge, Avapt sufficiently a gainer, Vivistita, being well versed in everything. Not everything knowable. Translation. Sri Suta Goswami said, while traveling on pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. Purport. Vidura, one of the prominent figures in the history of Mahabharata, he was conceived by Vyasadeva in the womb of maidservant of Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. He is the incarnation of Yamaraj, being cursed by Manduka Muni. He was to become a Shudra. The story is narrated as follows. Once upon a time, the state police caught some thieves who had concealed themselves in the hermitage of Manduka Muni. The police constables, as usual, arrested all the thieves and Manduka Muni along with them. The magistrate specifically punished the Muni to death by being pierced with a lance. When he was just to be pierced, the news reached the king. He at once stopped the act as on consideration of his being a great Muni. The king personally begged Muni's pardon for the mistake of his men, and the saint at once went to Yamaraj, who prescribes the destiny of living beings. Yamaraj, being questioned by Muni, replied that Muni in his childhood pierced an ant with a sharpened straw, and for that reason he was put into difficulty. The Muni thought it unwise on the part of Yamaraj that he was punished for his child is innocent, and thus the Muni caused Yamaraj to become a Shudra. And the Shudra incarnation of Yamaraj was known as Vidura. The Vidura, brother of Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Pandu, but this Shudra, son of the Kuru dynasty, was equally treated by Bhishma Dev along with his other nephews, and in due course Vidura was married with a girl who was also born in the womb of a Shudrani by a Brahmana. Although Vidura did not inherit the property of his father, the brother of Bhishma Dev, still he was given sufficient state property by Dhritarashtra, the elder brother of Vidura. Vidura is very much attached to his elder brother, and all along he tried to guide him on the right path. During the fratricial war of Kurukshetra, Vidura repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the sons of Pandu. But Duryodhana did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidura. This resulted in Vidura's leaving home from pilgrimage and taking instructions from Maitreya. Hare Krishna. So before I start, I would like to offer my prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यं मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकथामह्यं ददान्ति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललित श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So Hare Krishna. So we had we were previously seeing about Parikshit Maharaj, how Parikshit Maharaj was in the previous chapter, how Parikshit Maharaj is born and how Supreme Lord protects him, and and how he's been compared to the different personalities, great personalities. So now Sukadev Goswami Sukadev Goswami has described about Dhritarashtra who is quitting his home. So why would Dhritarashtra quit his home, and what made him quit home? All of this is being detailedly given by Srila Prabhupada in all the upcoming verses, and this being the first words. So we'll try and understand as to what points can we take home from this particular verse from the 13th chapter, first canto. So now we can see as to how it is being mentioned in the purport. So the entire context is that Vidura is leaving his home and he's leaving Hastinapur, and he's going and he's taking teachings from Maitreya Muni, right? So let's understand. Prabhupada has given a detailed purport of who is Vidura and how he was born, why did he become Shudra, and everything about that. So Vidura, how Vidura was born. So Vidura was conceived by Vyasadeva. So we all know this story as to how Vyasadeva comes, and Vidura's mother, she's the maid servant of Ambika. Okay, Ambika is the mother of Pandu, and we know how Vyasadeva was so merciful. So, in order to help the progeny help the lineage come down, that is the dynasty of Hastinapur to come down. Vyasadeva comes in and he was very merciful, and he by his powers he conceives three children, the three brothers. One is first is Dhritarashtra, next is Pandu, and the third one is Vidura. So we all know as to how when Dhritarashtra's mother, right, when she saw Vyasadeva, she became so fearful, and she started, because Vyasadeva has gone through so much of meditation, and you know once she looked at him, and as soon and he came out of his meditation, and when he had come to Dhritarashtra's mother, and when Dhritarashtra's mother saw Vyasadeva, she immediately closed her eyes. And because of this, Vyasadeva tells that you looked at me and you closed your eyes, so your son will be born blind. So that is how Dhritarashtra did not have eyes. He was blind. And similarly, Ambika did not want to make the same mistake. So what she, looks at Vyasadeva, and she goes all pale. And that is why Pandu, when he was born, he was in pale in color, and because of that, the same disease, he dies at his young age. So, but Vidura's mother, she was a maid servant of Ambika, and this maid servant, she, offered her obeisance to Vyasadeva, and served Vyasadeva very nicely, and as a result, Vidura was born. Vidura was so intelligent. He was born all hale and healthy, and he was so intelligent because it was the blessing of Vyasadeva. He was very pleased by the surrender of Vidura's mother, and he blessed that the child will be very intelligent. And that is how Vidura was so intelligent. So, but we can see that Vidura was very intelligent, but he was born in a family of Shudra. She was a maid servant. Vidura's mother was a maid servant. So Prabhupada has also given the story for why Vidura was born as a son of a maid servant. So what would have happened is, actually Vidura is an incarnation of Yamaraj. So Srila Prabhupada has given a background for the same. So what would have happened is, there is a Muni called Manduka Muni, and he would have had an hermitage, and some of the thieves would have stolen some precious ornaments and jewels, and they would have come and hid it in Mandukamuni's hermitage. And Mandukamuni would be meditating, so he's not aware about the entire picture, what is happening, because he's meditating, and in the meantime all these thieves have come and hid all their stolen material at the hermitage of Mandukamuni. And what happens? The king comes to know that these thieves have stolen. So he sends his constables to get in order to catch these thieves. And in the same hermitage, even the Muni is there. So they do not know that the Mandoka Muni is not a part of this entire stealing activity. But still, Mandoka Muni, along with all the other thieves, they are being arrested, and they're taken to the king. And all the thieves were punished, and it was the turn of Mandukamuni. And Mandukamuni, they were supposed to pierce lance into Mandukamuni for the because they are thinking that Manduka Muni is also a part of the thief gang, the entire robbery gang. And it is said that they pierce the lance, and even after several time piercing into Manduka Muni's body, this particular Muni did not die. And that's the news reaches the king, and the king comes to know he's an exalted, self-realized soul, and the king understands that you know he is that he has done an offense to the Muni. He begs for forgiveness and he lets the Muni go. But Manduka Muni, we know he's a self-realized soul, so he thinks, oh, it is my own karma, and I have, that is why I've gone through this entire activity, and that is why I went through this entire act of me being punished. But he wanted to know what is this, what act that he, what act has he performed that he has been, given such a cruel punishment, that is piercing lance into his body. So what he does, in the meantime, he meditates, and he meets Yamaraj, because he's a Muni, right? So he's got all that power and everything. So because of that, he meditates and he meets Yamaraj. He goes to Yamaraj and he asks Yamaraj, uh, oh Yamaraj, what act have I done that I've got such a punishment that they've pierced lance into my body? What have I done? What sinful activity I would have done? Such a sinful activity that I had to go through such a punishment. So what happens? Yamaraj, he opens the book because it has been maintained by Chitragupta. He maintains all the accounts of each and every activity done by each and every living entity. So Yamaraj opens the books maintained by Chitragupta, and he sees that Mandukya Muni, when he was a young boy, he would have pierced an ant with the thorn, right? So because of that, Yamaraj tells, you have pierced an ant with the rod, with the thorn, with a sharp thorn, and because of that, as a result, you're getting the reaction for your acts when you were a child. You're getting the result now, and that is why the lance was pierced into your body, because you pierced thorn into the ant's body. So for that, you have to take a reaction, right? So because for that, for the same thing, now we are being punished. And Mandukya Muni thinks, to himself, telling that, he tells Yamaraj that, oh Yamadev, I had done it when I was a young boy. And in Shastras, it is being mentioned until, up to 5 or 12 years. I'm not sure about the age. Until that time period, this child is not responsible, because the child is not even aware about what is he doing. And Mandukya Muni thinks that this act of Yamaraj, for that, punishing, because a child is innocent, and Mandukya Muni is being punished for his innocent act. He's performed it without knowing, and he because of this, he gets angry on, you know Yamadev, and he curses Yamadev that you're thinking like a Shudra, so you be born as a Shudra for 100 years. So he curses the Yamaraj, and Yamaraj is being born as a Shudra, and he takes the form of Vidura in the entire story of Mahabharat. He takes his birth as Vidura. So Vidura, we can see, even though he was born in family of Shudra, he was such a knowledgeable person. And he was so knowledgeable that he was given the post of a prime minister in the kingdom that was ruled by Dhritarashtra. He was given the post of a prime minister. That is how knowledgeable he was. And he even knew that Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead. That is how knowledgeable he was, because he was a Shudra. So, getting gone to his roots, so Shudra can never realize, right, that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. All this wouldn't, because they are not that intelligent to realize that. Krishna is the supreme Lord, but Vidura knew that Krishna is the supreme Lord, and he was all surrendered to the supreme Lord, and he performed such menial activities, such he served the supreme Lord so nicely. How did he acquire this knowledge? Is because we know he was Yamaraj, so he's already a self-realized soul, and because his mother, Vidura's mother, she humbly served Vyasadev, and because she surrendered to Vyasadev, and when Vyasadev conceived Vidura, that is when he was blessed that he'll become all intelligent. So we can see that the thing that how people misinterpret that a person who is being born in the family of a brahmana, only he can become a brahmana, only he can recite the words, the hymns, read Vedic scriptures. All that is being, nowadays people, it's a misconception by people. But here we can see a Vidura, he was born in the family of a Shudra, but because, he surrendered to the Supreme Lord, he automatically got all that Vedic knowledge. And it is even said that Bhishma Dev did not, Bhishma Dev is also one of the Mahajans, and he did not treat Vidura depending upon his caste. It is very important to note this point here, that Vidura was not treated on the basis of his caste. Bhishma Dev treated him as equivalent to other nephews. How he treated, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, in the similar manner, Vidura was given all the training, all the Shastra training, all the Vedic hymns, everything Vidura was trained for. And you know how Vidura was such an intelligent person when this, Pandavas were sent to exile, and they were sent to this lac palace, right, which was built with wax and all the oily items, so that they decided this, the party of Duryodhana and everybody, they wanted to kill Pandavas. And they sent them to that wax palace and set it on fire. And Vidura knew this. He was so intelligent that, he did not use any of the weapons to save the Pandavas. He was so intelligent that he already started, making this Surang mark so that the Pandavas could escape from that. And as a result of his intelligence, we know how Pandavas escaped through the, Surang mark, and they were saved. And how did it happen? Because Vidura used his intelligence, right? So that is one thing, that how Vidura was so intelligent. And the second thing, that quality we can note in Vidura is that here Vidura quit his home and he went to Maitreya Muni to acquire knowledge, okay, to become well versed in the scriptures. So what happened? So we all know, right? So Vidura was, always trying to get back Dhritarashtra on the right path. He was always advising. Even when this war of Kurukshetra happened, he kept on telling, Dhritarashtra that, oh Dhritarashtra, why do you want to, you're become blind. You're anyways physically blind. You've become blind. Even your sons, your love on your sons have made you even spiritually blind. You're not able to understand that the act that your sons are doing is the most sinful act. Why don't you just call back this war and give whatever has to be given to Pandavas? So at every minute, Vidura was thinking good about his brother Dhritarashtra. So this is one of the qualities of a Vaishnava. So Vaishnava, irrespective of how many ever times, Duryodhana insulted him, telling that you are a Shudra, you are eating our food and you're supporting our enemies. So Duryodhana had considered Pandavas to be their enemies, and he was telling Vidura that you are eating the rice of our house and you're supporting the enemies. You don't even have, you're not even a faithful person. But they were unable to understand that Vidura's concern. Vidura was, over and again trying to help Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, making Dhritarashtra, he was trying to make Dhritarashtra understand that you have become blind in the love for your sons. You please get back on the right path, and, help your call back the war. So why was Vidura doing all of this? Because he was concerned, irrespective of how many ever times, there were several times, this Duryodhana, insulted Vidura just because Vidura was not in favor to the acts that Duryodhana was doing. He had insulted so many times. So many times Vidura had, instructed Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, that what he was doing is wrong. In spite of that, Dhritarashtra and his sons, all of them did whatever they wanted to. But what we can note from the character of Vidura is that in spite of over and again being insulted, being neglected and ignored, Vidura never gave up. So this is a quality of a Vaishnava, that with he always wants, he's a paradukka dukhi. He cannot see Duryodhana going through such suffering, so that is why he wanted to call back the war. So this is one of the most important quality of a Vaishnava, that he should be compassionate. So Prabhupada used to tell that if this quality of compassionate, being compassionate on other living entities, until that quality arises, one cannot preach the message of Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu brought in this entire Hare Krishna movement because he was compassionate, because Radharani was so compassionate on her children. So Krishna comes in the mood and complexion of Radharani, and carrying that compassionate mood, she comes to distribute the holy name of the Lord. So Prabhupada used to always, emphasize on this compassionate mood. He used to always tell, so until and unless a devotee, this compassionate mood comes into the heart of the devotee, they cannot preach. And this can be seen in Vidura. He was so compassionate upon Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, that he kept on again and again trying to get them back, in spite of over and again telling over and again these people ignoring his words. He never gave it up. That is how the spirit of Vaishnava should be. uh, we start a bhakti vriksha, we cannot expect that people will, all the 15-20 people who register will come back to the class and register, here to the class every day they'll turn up. No, it may not happen initially, but we as devotees should never lose up enthusiasm. We should always trust Krishna, right? We can see that in Vidura also. Vidura was such a fearless person. When he was asked, when they all asked him to leave the house and go, Vidura did not think twice, oh, I am in the kingdom. If I leave my palace and go, how will I survive? No, Vidura never thought about it. Vidura was so surrendered to the Supreme Lord. He thought, okay, they want me to live and go. Maybe the Supreme Lord is making them tell all these. He surrendered to the plans of the Supreme Lord. So that is what we have to learn. We always have to think that the Supreme Lord has a different plan, and we have to surrender to the plan of the Supreme Lord. And Vidura did the same thing. And he kept all his weapon at the doorstep of Hastinapur, of the doorstep of of the palace. And he gave up everything. He renounced everything and he left Hastinapur. And similarly, when we also start, all these bhakti vrikshas, we have to remember, it's okay, people are not turning up today. Tomorrow we can keep up our enthusiasm, and we can render the devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. This is one thing we can learn. And ending up with the last point, we can see Vidura left his house, and where did he go? He went to Maitreya Muni. So why did he go to Maitreya Muni? Is to, acquire self-realized knowledge. So we know Vidura is, none other than Yamaraj. So he's already self-realized. We know Yamaraj is one among the Mahajans, and he's already a self-realized soul. But in order to set an example, all these Mahajans, they set an example through the acts they perform. Okay, so he went to Maitreya Muni, he serves Maitreya Muni, and he acquires the knowledge, because the same thing has been instructed by the Supreme Lord in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadhyakshante te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So a person has to first render service unto the lotus feet of the spiritual master, and then inquire submissively, because he is a self-realized soul. And Vidura is showing it through his own example. Even though he was Yamaraj in his previous birth, even though he's a self-realized soul, he is trying to tell that without a spiritual master, one cannot acquire a realized knowledge. And what is the result of this? We can see in the upcoming chapters. Vidura goes to Maitreya Muni, he acquires all the transcendental knowledge, he comes back, he doesn't keep the knowledge with himself. Okay, he comes back and he instructs the same, whatever he has heard through Maitreya Muni, he instructs it to Dhritarashtra, and as a result, Dhritarashtra quits home. Dhritarashtra comes to know, oh yeah, I was blind all these days, and he becomes self realized and he quits home. So another thing we can learn is that a spiritual master is very much necessary, and and when we hear, we have to hear from realized souls. So Vidura had previously instructed, Dhritarashtra about all the things that he would have said it before. Okay, but he again tells it now, because now when he tells it, Dhritarashtra listens to it, and he realizes why is it, because Vidura has acquired knowledge from an authorized source. So it is so important that we hear from an authorized source. Only then it will have impact when we pass down the knowledge, because a realized soul is telling it, it will have impact. So this is the beginning of the chapter as to how Vidura goes, acquires knowledge from Maitreya Muni, and he's left his home and he meets Maitreya Muni, and he acquires the transcendental knowledge, and he comes back, and in the upcoming verses we can see what is the knowledge he has acquired, how he instructs Dhritarashtra. So I stop it here. So thank you all for your patient listening. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, पतित पावन गुरु महाराज की जय.